I didn't know he was watching me, episode 10 finale. 1 year later. Ada woke up to sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows and the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment, just a moment, she forgot. Forgot the arrests and confessions and courtroom battles. Forgot the year of supervised release and constant oversight. Forgot everything except the feeling of being warm and safe and home. Then she remembered. And smiled. Because this was real. A year later, it was still real. She found Jaehyun in the kitchen, making breakfast. Badly, but trying. That was the theme of the past year. Trying. Failing sometimes. But always trying. Morning, he said, kissing her forehead. Coffee? Please. They sat at the counter. The same counter where she'd found the first envelope. Where everything had started to unravel and then, somehow, come back together. Big day, Jaehyun said. Big day, Ada agreed. Today was the 1-year review. The prosecutors, the oversight committee, David Chen, everyone who'd agreed to the alternative sentencing would evaluate Jaehyun's compliance. His cooperation. His commitment to the terms. If he passed, for more years of supervised release. If he failed, prison. Immediately. No appeals. Are you nervous? Ada asked. Terrified. But also ready. I've done the work. We've done the work. If that's not enough, then nothing will be. Ada took his hand. Squeezed. It'll be enough. The past year had been the hardest and best of Ada's life. Hard because of the scrutiny. The oversight. The constant reporting to prosecutors and probation officers. The restrictions on where Jaehyun could go, who he could see, what business he could conduct. Hard because of the cooperation requirement. Watching Jaehyun testify against people he'd once worked with. Providing information that led to arrests, raids, shutdowns. Becoming, essentially, an informant for the very system he'd spent decades evading. Hard because of the doubt. The constant question hanging over them. Was this real rehabilitation? Or was he just doing what he needed to do to stay out of prison? But also the best year. Because they'd built something real. Something honest. Something that didn't rely on secrets or manipulation or convenient omissions. The shelter had expanded. From 30 beds to 60. From one location to 2. From a pilot program to a fully funded nonprofit with government grants and private donations. Ada ran it. Officially. Not as Jaehyun's girlfriend doing charity work on the side. But as executive director. With a salary. With decision-making authority. With her own team of counselors, case managers, job trainers, legal advocates. She'd found her calling. Her purpose. The thing that made her matter beyond being someone's partner. Lin was the assistant director. A year of healing and therapy and growth had transformed her from a terrified survivor into a fierce advocate. She spoke at conferences. Trained other counselors. Helped new arrivals navigate the trauma of what they'd survived. Ran the job training program. Teaching skills, sewing, cooking, computers that gave women pathways to employment that didn't exploit them. Siri managed housing placement. Working with landlords and social services to help women transition from the shelter to independent living. The women Jaehyun had saved were saving others. The cycle of rescue and recovery and rebirth continuing. Growing. And Jaehyun. Jaehyun had changed. Not perfectly. Not completely. But substantially. He testified in 6 major cases. Provided information that led to the shutdown of 4 trafficking operations, 2 money laundering networks, and 1 drug distribution ring. He cooperated fully with investigators. Answered questions. Provided documents. Named names. It cost him. Friends turned enemy. Business partners severed ties. Reputation in certain circles destroyed. But he did it anyway. Because the alternative was prison. Because Ada asked him to. Because he'd promised. And slowly, gradually, he'd become something else. Not quite the legitimate businessman he pretended to be. But not the crime lord he'd been either. Something in between. Someone trying. The doorbell rang at 9 a.m. sharp. The oversight team. Right on time. Ada opened the door to find 3 people, the lead prosecutor, a probation officer, and David Chen. A year of quarterly meetings had made them familiar faces. Not quite friends. But not enemies either. Just people doing a job. People trying to make sure justice actually meant something. Good morning, the prosecutor said. Ready for the review? As ready as we'll ever be, Ada said. They sat in the living room. Formal. Professional. Ada beside Jaehyun. United. The prosecutor opened a folder. We've reviewed the past year's compliance reports, the cooperation logs, the testimony records, the shelter audits, all of it. And? Jaehyun asked. And you've met every requirement. Exceeded most. The information you've provided has been invaluable. The operations you've helped shut down have saved, conservatively, over 100 potential victims. The shelter has served 93 women. 81 have transitioned to independent living. 73 are employed. Those are exceptional numbers. It's not just me, Jaehyun said. It's Ada. It's the team. It's the women themselves. I provide resources. They do the actual work. The prosecutor nodded. Which brings us to the evaluation. The question isn't just compliance. It's change. Has this year changed you? Or have you simply done what's required to avoid prison? The room was silent. Jaehyun took a breath. A year ago, I would have said I'd changed. I would have pointed to the shelter, to Ada, to all the choices I'd made differently. But honestly, I don't know if I'd changed or if I was just scared of going to prison. Ada's stomach tightened. Now, Jaehyun continued. Now I know. This year has been hell. Testifying against people I worked with. Watching businesses I built get dismantled. Losing relationships I'd maintained for decades. Every day, I've wanted to stop. To walk away. To go back to who I was. Why didn't you? The prosecutor asked. Because of them. The women at the shelter. Lynn and Mayan, Siri, and all the others. I've watched them rebuild their lives from nothing. I've watched them choose courage every single day. And I realized if they can change after what they've survived, I have no excuse. None. So I kept going. Not because of the legal requirements, but because I didn't want to be the person I was anymore. I wanted to be someone those women could respect. Someone Ada could be proud of. Someone I could stand to see in the mirror. The probation officer made notes. David Chen watched without expression. Ada, the prosecutor said. Your perspective. Has he changed? Ada chose her words carefully. Yes. Not completely. Not perfectly. But yes. A year ago, his first instinct was protection. Control. Keeping me safe by keeping me ignorant. Now he asks. He consults. He trusts me to handle myself. A year ago, he solved problems with money and threats. Now he tries other solutions first. Sometimes he fails. Sometimes he reverts. But he tries. And that's change. Do you trust him? Yes. Not blindly. Not unconditionally. But yes. I trust him to keep trying. To keep choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. That's all anyone can do. David Chen spoke for the first time. I have a question. For both of you. Go ahead, Jaehyun said. Was it worth it? This year. The restrictions. The scrutiny. The sacrifice. Was it worth it? Ada and Jaehyun looked at each other. Yes, Ada said. Because 93 women have safety they wouldn't have otherwise. Because 4 trafficking operations are gone. Because the work Marcus Chen died trying to do is continuing. That's worth it. Yes, Jaehyun agreed. Because I'm not in prison. Because I'm with Ada. Because I've become something other than what I was. Because I have a purpose beyond survival and accumulation. That's worth it. David nodded slowly. Marcus would have, he stopped. Started again. Marcus would have appreciated that. The outcome. Not the method. But the outcome. The prosecutor closed the folder. Based on our evaluation, we're recommending continuation of the supervised release. For more years. Same terms. Same oversight. Any objections? No objections, Jaehyun said. Then we're done here. Continue the good work. We'll reconvene in 3 months for the next quarterly review. They stood. Shook hands. Professional. Cordial. The oversight team left. Ada and Jaehyun stood in the empty penthouse. For more years, Ada said. For more years, Jaehyun repeated. I can do that. We can do that. Yes, we can. They held each other. Two people who'd survived a year of scrutiny and doubt and emerged still standing. Still together. Still choosing each other. Ada's phone rang. The shelter. Ada, Mrs. Cho's voice was excited. You need to come down here. Now. Something wonderful. What happened? Just come. You'll see. They drove to the shelter together. Walked in to find the common room transformed. Decorations. Cake. Balloons. All 93 women who'd passed through in the past year. Current residents and graduates. All gathered. Surprise, they shouted. Lynn stepped forward. We wanted to celebrate. 1 year of the shelter. 1 year of lives changed. 1 year of you believing we were worth saving. Ada's eyes filled with tears. You were always worth saving. You showed us that. Both of you. So we wanted to say thank you. Not just for the shelter. Not just for the resources. But for seeing us. For treating us like people instead of problems. For giving us a chance. I brought forward a plaque. Handmade. Beautiful. With all 93 names engraved. For the woman who saved us by refusing to accept that we couldn't be saved, I read. For showing us that survival is just the beginning. For teaching us that we deserve more than just to exist, we deserve to thrive. Ada couldn't speak. Just hug them. All of them. These women who'd survived impossible things and chosen to build impossible futures. Jaehyun stood back. Watching. Seeing what they'd built together. What Ada had built. Later, after the party wound down, after the cake was eaten and the women returned to their routines, Ada found Jaehyun on the shelter roof. Looking out at Seoul. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking about the first time I saw you. Cleaning floors in my building. Looking invisible and trying to stay that way. And now, he gestured at the building below them. Now you're running an organization. Leading a team. Changing lives. It's extraordinary. So are you. The man who could have gone to prison is instead shutting down the operations that hurt these women. That's extraordinary too. We're a good team. We are. They stood together. Looking at the city that had been the backdrop for all of it. The manipulation and the choices and the changes. Do you ever regret it? Jaehyun asked. Staying. Choosing this life. Choosing me. Every day, Ada said honestly. And then I come here. I see what we've built. I see Lynn thriving. I see my teaching. I see Siri helping someone move into their first apartment. And I think, this is what my choice made possible. This is what staying created. So no, I don't regret it. Not really. What about the next 4 years? For more years of oversight and restrictions. Can you do that? Can you? If you're with me, yes. Then yes. I can do that. Jaehyun pulled something from his pocket. A small box. Ada's breath caught. I'm not supposed to make major life changes without approval from my probation officer, he said. So technically, I should have asked permission first. But he opened the box. A ring. Simple. Beautiful. Perfect. Ada, you've stood by me through arrests and confessions and courtrooms. You've fought for me when I didn't deserve it. You've believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You've built something extraordinary while I was just trying to survive. You've made me want to be better every single day. Will you marry me? Ada looked at this man. This complicated, dangerous, changing man who'd let someone die and then spent a year making it right. This man who'd been engineered into her life by someone seeking revenge and somehow become the most important person in her world. Yes, she said. With conditions. He laughed. Of course. What conditions? We do it right. Not some Vegas elopement. Not some secret ceremony. A real wedding. With our people. With the women from the shelter. With everyone who's been part of this story. We don't hide. We don't run. We stand up and say yes, this is who we chose, and we're proud of it. Agreed. What else? We keep our own lives. Our own work. Our own purposes. We're partners, not halves of a whole. I run the shelter. You do your cooperation work. We support each other, but we don't lose ourselves in each other. Agreed. What else? We keep being honest. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. No more secrets. No more omissions. No more protecting each other from uncomfortable truths. We face everything together. Or we don't face it at all. Agreed. Anything else? We remember. Always. How we started. The manipulation. The lies. The way our relationship was engineered by someone else's revenge. We don't pretend that doesn't matter. We acknowledge it. And we choose each other anyway. Every day. Knowing exactly what we're choosing. I can do that. I promise I can do that. Ada took the ring. Slid it on her finger. Then yes. I'll marry you. With full knowledge. With open eyes. With absolute clarity about what I'm choosing. He kissed her. Soft. Deep. Full of promise and hope and the weight of everything they'd survived to get here. Below them, Seoul moved through its evening. Millions of people living millions of lives. Most of them simple. Uncomplicated. Safe. Ada had never wanted safe. She'd wanted purpose. Power. The ability to matter. And somehow, through manipulation and choice and pain and growth, she'd found it. Not in spite of the complexity, but because of it. They went back to the penthouse. Called Jaehyun to share the news. She screamed. Cried. Demanded to be maid of honor. They called Lieutenant Park. She grunted approval and said she'd attend but wouldn't wear a dress. They called Mrs. Cho. She cried and said she'd make Ada's dress herself. They didn't call David Chen. But somehow, Ada knew he'd hear about it. And somehow, she thought he'd approve. In his own complicated way. That night, lying in bed, Ada thought about the journey. From Lagos to Seoul. From cleaning floors to running a shelter. From pawn to player. From invisible to essential. What are you thinking? Jaehyun asked. I'm thinking about the girl I was 14 months ago. If she could see me now engaged to a man with a criminal past, running an organization that protects trafficking survivors, planning a life that's anything but safe, she wouldn't recognize herself. Is that good or bad? Good. Definitely good. She was surviving. I'm living. There's a difference. What's the difference? Surviving is accepting what happens to you. Living is making what happens. She accepted. I make. That's the difference. Jaehyun pulled her close. You're extraordinary. Have I mentioned that? Once or twice. But I never get tired of hearing it. They lay in comfortable silence. Two people who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. Two people building a future on a foundation that was cracked but real. Outside, Seoul glittered. Indifferent to their story. Just one more story in a city of millions. But to them, it was everything. 3 months later, they stood in the shelter garden. 63 women in attendance, current residents and graduates. Jaehyun in a beautiful dress, crying before the ceremony even started. Lieutenant Park in a pantsuit, looking uncomfortable but present. Mrs. Cho dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. David Chen in the back row. He'd shown up uninvited. But Ada saw him and nodded. Let him stay. Because he'd been part of this story too. The villain and the catalyst and eventually, reluctantly, an ally. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate decorations. No expensive venue. Just vows. Honest vows. I choose you, Ada said. Knowing exactly who you are. What you've done. What you're capable of. I choose you anyway. Because you're trying to be better. Because you've made my purpose possible. Because together we've built something that matters. I choose you. Today. Tomorrow. Every day after. With full knowledge and open eyes. I choose you, Jaehyun said. Knowing you could have run. Should have run. Knowing you stayed anyway. Knowing you fought for me when I didn't deserve it. Knowing you see both the man I was and the man I'm trying to become. I choose you. Today. Tomorrow. Every day after. With gratitude and hope and determination to be worthy of that choice. They kissed. The women cheered. Jaehyun sobbed. Lieutenant Park actually smiled. At the reception, Lin gave a speech. A year ago, I was tied to a chair in a warehouse. Terrified. Broken. Ready to give up. And then Ada walked in. Alone. Unarmed. Facing down dangerous men with nothing but courage and words. She saved me that night. But that wasn't the first time she saved me. The first time was months before. When she showed up at the old shelter. When she sat beside me. When she didn't demand my story or my gratitude. When she just stayed. Until I believed someone actually cared if I was okay. She looked at Ada. You taught me that survival isn't enough. That I deserve to thrive. That my trauma doesn't define me. That I can be powerful instead of just broken. Thank you for believing in me before I believed in myself. Ada was crying. Jaehyun held her hand. I spoke next. Jaehyun. When I first came to the shelter, I was angry. Angry at men. At the system. At everyone who'd used me and hurt me. I didn't want your money or your protection. I thought you were just another powerful man trying to control us. But then I watched. I saw how you listened to Ada. How you changed your plans when she asked. How you let her lead instead of trying to control her. And I realized you're not trying to control us. You're trying to make amends. For things you did. For things you didn't stop. You can't undo the past. But you can build a different future. Thank you. For trying. Siri spoke. Then others. One by one. Women whose lives had been changed by the shelter. By Ada's vision. By Jaehyun's resources and gradual transformation. When it was over, when the speeches were done and the food was eaten and the dancing had started, Ada found a quiet moment with Jaehyun. This is it, she said. The life we chose. The future we built. How does it feel? Terrifying. Wonderful. Complicated. Real. Perfect answer. They danced. Not well, but together. Two people who'd survived manipulation and doubt and legal battles and emerged still standing. Still choosing each other. David Chen left before the reception ended, but he stopped by Ada on his way out. Congratulations, he said. I hope you're happy. Both of you. Are you? Happy with how it turned out. I got justice. Not the kind I expected. Not the kind I wanted. But justice. Marcus's work continues. Operations are being shut down. Women are being saved. That's what he would have wanted. So yes, I'm content. Thank you for giving him a chance. For seeing that redemption matters more than revenge. Thank you for making it mean something. For making sure his cooperation actually helps people instead of just keeping him out of prison. They shook hands. Then, surprising both of them, hugged briefly. Two people who'd been enemies and become something else. Not quite friends, but allies in making sure one man's death eventually led to many lives saved. David left. The reception continued. At midnight, when the party finally wound down and the guests had left, Ada and Jaehyun stood alone in the shelter garden. We did it, Ada said. Survived everything. Made it to the other side. Built something real. We did. What happens now? Now we live. We run the shelter. We cooperate with authorities for 4 more years. We help more women. We keep choosing each other. We keep trying to be better. We keep making our choices matter. That's a lot of work. Yes, but it's our work. Our choice. Our life. Jaehyun kissed her. I love you, Mrs. Kong. I love you too. And it's Ms. Ada Okafor Kong. Thank you very much. I didn't give up my name just because I married you. He laughed. Of course not. That would be too simple. And we've never been simple. No. We've been complicated and messy and built on a broken foundation of manipulation and lies. But also real. And chosen. And worth it. Yes. Also that. They walked back to the penthouse. Back to the life they'd built. The future they'd created through choices and consequences and refusing to accept that broken things couldn't be repaired. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There was no happily ever after guaranteed. For more years of supervised release loomed. The past couldn't be undone. The foundation would always be cracked. But it was theirs. Built with honesty and effort and the kind of love that survives because it's chosen, not just felt. And sometimes, that's the best kind of ending there is. Not perfect. Not simple. Just real. The end. Thank you for following Ada's journey from invisible cleaning woman to powerful advocate. From pawn to player. From surviving to living. Her story is complete. But the shelter continues. The women continue. The work continues. And Ada and Jaehyun continue. Choosing each other. Choosing purpose. Choosing to make their complicated, messy, beautiful life matter. Comment below, what surprised you most about how the story ended? What would you have done differently? And if you stayed with Ada through all 10 episodes, through the manipulation, the confessions, the arrests, the courtroom battles, the wedding, thank you for believing her story mattered. For seeing that sometimes the most interesting love stories are the complicated ones. The ones where choosing to stay is the bravest thing you can do.